So basically 411 here comes straight out Boise back at you with another YouTube video. And for today's video I'm going to be doing a movie review. The movie I'm going to be reviewing is JoJo Rabbit by Tiki YTT. I'm not going to lie, I'm having an issue pronouncing the director's name. Some notable cast that are in this is Scarlett Johansson. She plays the mother of the main character. And then also Rebel Wilson. She is an actor off of the movie Pitch Perfect. But anyway, those are some notable people. So now let's basically talk about the movie. So essentially what the movie is, it's political satire. And I'll get to how it's political satire. So basically what the movie is about, it's about this 10-year-old boy who has an imaginary friend who is Adolf Hitler. And it's kind of his mindset at the time. You know, he views Hitler like everybody, a lot of Germans did, as like a really awesome person. And then what ends up happening is there comes a point where his mind kind of there's a bunch of conflict, with that being the fact that his mother is a part of the resistance and also is basically keeping a Jewish person in the basement and hiding her from the Nazis. And basically what ends up happening is there comes a point where he goes to a camp for the Hitler Youth, blows himself up with a hand grenade, ends up surviving, and then what ends up happening is he ends up discovering this Jewish girl, and basically they kind of start forming a relationship where basically, you know, it kind of, by him engaging in this or having discussions with this girl, it kind of contradicts what his feelings are, and basically he ends up just really having second thoughts. And it's funny too because it actually depicts him getting into an argument with the imaginary Hitler, who's played by the director. And just overall, like, basically he just starts really thinking about like what is he following, and which I have to mention also, the acting is actually really, really good for a child actor. I really love the chemistry between the kid who was playing JoJo and Scarlett Johansson. It went along natural almost. And if anything, I actually have to give props, because one thing I thought was interesting was how like they would like match their pajamas together and before they went to bed. It was really, really interesting. But anyway, so when I first watched this movie, I wasn't really expecting anything like historically accurate due to the fact that it is satire. I wasn't expecting like anything to be historically accurate. But I have to give it, you know, some props for being somewhat historical accurate. Like, one thing that I was completely amazed about was the fact that it was nice seeing Germans armed with something besides MP40s and K98s and Lugers. You know, when you're watching World War II movies, that's literally all what the Germans are armed with. They're not armed with anything else, when in reality they had bunch different types of firearms, all that. Like, for example, I saw the P38, which is a really interesting handgun, and then I even saw a Sturmgewehr, or SG-44, as people who play COD know it to be. So I have to give them props for that. And it was nice seeing, you know, not a bunch of people running around with MP40s. And then, of course, there's some subtle hints, too, which I really enjoyed. Like, they were really messed up jokes, but it was, like, very, like, soft and, like, hidden. Like, for example, when the kid basically comes back after being blown up with the hand grenade, kind of comes back into the Hitler Youth group. You know, he was basically trying to figure out, oh, what's this kid gonna do for like work? And it was funny because what ends up happening is Rebel Wilson's like, the character who she plays as, was like, oh, walk the clones, which, if you get that joke, that's kind of a joke to the whole thing with the Nazis and the whole genetic thing and how genetically pure stuff is, which is bullshit. It makes no sense. And also another interesting joke I found, too, was the captain, who basically, he's a captain. He's the captain who kind of like goes along with JoJo this whole time. It's pretty interesting because it actually shows him having pink triangles on his uniform towards the end of the movie, which is kind of a subtle hint that he was gay, which is really, really interesting because Like, it's just interesting. They were just, like, quietly depicting this character gay, because for any of you guys who don't know, in Nazi Germany, the ways that they would discriminate against homosexuals was they would make them wear a pink triangle, which that is wrong. And but anyway, so towards the end they just decorate this guy with pink triangles, and I thought it was really, really interesting. Or, like, just in general how he interacted with other characters in the movie. And then, if anything, he actually kind of helps JoJo and the Jewish girl, because what ends up happening is there comes a point where the Gestapo come in and they're investigating the house, because of course the kid's mother is a part of the resistance. Well, what ends up happening is the Jewish girl takes his sister's papers, who his sister had passed away, and basically gave it to the captain, and the captain's like, oh, like, this is wrong, but hey, I'm gonna pass you off because I don't agree with this, and I think this is bullshit, and to be honest, this war's ending, so it's kind of pointless to just, like, kind of give you up at this point, because as I said, the war's ending. Which, then here comes this really sad part about the movie. It really shows the side of Germany that's really messed up in the form of the defense of Berlin. What a lot of people don't know is during the defense of Berlin, they actually used child soldiers, which is really, really messed up. They were taking, like, 10-year-olds and giving them guns and stuff. And just old people, too, because as I said, there wasn't really any young men left to fight, which it's really sad. Which that's one thing I kind of have to give it props for, was the fact that it depicted a really sad thing, but did it in a satire way. I mean, it's not funny, but there was some subtle things that make it kind of more bearable or palatable, which I said I don't necessarily think it's sad that they're using child soldiers, but it really shows, like, that depiction, which is one thing I actually have to kind of give it credit for too, with the historical side of it, is it did show, child soldiers, when in reality, yeah, Germany did use child soldiers, like 10-year-olds and stuff, and basically would just give them guns and be like, here, go fight. Or, like, another really interesting depiction was how, literally, with old ladies, and they were giving old ladies Panzer fists, and they're like, here's a Panzer fist. And then one thing I actually have to give it credit for too is, in a way, to physically kind of show the boy's, like, changing his mindset to basically be more of a good person, I'm going to say. It kind of shows that with Hitler, because what ends up happening is at the beginning, it shows Hitler like a god. Really awesome guy, really, really nice, like, how everybody views Hitler, well, how everybody in Germany at the time viewed Hitler. And then what ends up happening is, midway through, he starts fighting with Hitler. He's like, basically, screw off, like, no, like, she's a really good person, I don't think she's evil. And then what ends up happening is, towards the very end, where it switches, even his uniform changes too. It goes from the uniform that we kind of see him depicting in with the light brown, and then what ends up happening is towards the end it shows him in like that drab uniform that we see where in the movie, what is it? It's basically where that Hitler meme comes from. It actually shows him in that uniform. And then it's funny because one of the last things we see, because at the time he had heard that Hitler had killed himself in his bunker. And it literally shows Hitler with basically a gunshot wound in the head. And it's like, wow, this is really interesting. Like, in a way, it was kind of a metaphor, or not a metaphor, but it was a way of showing how, like, literally, like, this kid's mindset changed. And then also, one of the aspects, too, I guess it changed, what made him kind of change, too, was the fact that, I guess they killed his mother. He was walking through, basically walking through and saw in the town square that his mother had died. And I guess that probably also altered the way he viewed it. And overall, it was kind of interesting, too, because, like I said, it shows Germany in a really interesting way. And that's one thing I also really like about World War II movies like this, is it shows the aspect of World War II that we haven't really seen. Because, I mean, yeah, learning about Normandy is really, really awesome. Like, but you can only watch so much of the same stuff, like the same historical facts over and over again before it becomes kind of boring. Whereas with this, it shows an aspect of World War II that we really haven't gone accustomed to, which was the whole child soldiers, or like what it was like being, a child during the, not basically during the Nazis. And also just aspects of World War II that, once again, isn't really looked at. Or like another thing was, even though this is completely opposite, but and it's not even at all close to satire, and it's just downright depressing, is the book Bloodlands, which basically talks about like what they did in the form of like the genocides and stuff, and it just talks about, as I said, an aspect of World War II that we haven't become accustomed to, because I feel like in a way World War II is kind of glamorized to a certain extent, and we don't talk about the downs, like all of that stuff. We don't talk about like the child soldiers or really what was the genocides. We kind of glamorize it, which I'm not saying is necessarily a bad thing, but we're forgetting all this other stuff as a direct result, or how there was basically a huge migration in Europe after World War II. I said it's glamorized. We're essentially only talk about like the battles and stuff. But anyway, so that's it for this week's video. I would highly recommend you check out this movie. It's a really good movie. I loved it. It's probably one of my all-time favorite movies. I hope you guys have a good week, and it was nice, doing a video. Anyway, you guys have a good week, and I'll be seeing you, I want to say next week, but realistically, probably not going to happen. So I'll see you next time I decide to do a video.